We begin by simply listening. Slow down and see just how peaceful today can be. Thanks so much for swinging by. You can call me your host, your obedient servant, Sebastian Chica Smalls. You're killing me, Smalls. Vincent twice. You can always call me Bennett. The plan for this one is more Jane Eyre read by the San Diego Library lady. And more Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Thanks again for swinging by. Wish us luck.
San Diego Public Library. Today is day number 27 of our read aloud. We're going to do another double chapter day. Today is going to be chapters 31 and 32 of Jane Eyre. And it's been, again, it's kind of an interesting section of the book, I think, because after all the things of, like, you know, what goes on with the big drama at Thornfield Hall, we kind of have this almost quiet moment over here in where she starts establishing a new path for herself. And so let's go ahead and pour out our tea today because she's in the countryside. We've got country peach passion herbal tea, also because I like this flavor. But it seemed like a nice little carryover to what we're doing in the story as well. Let's see, where did we leave off in the story? In the last two chapters, Jane woke up at Moore House, where she was with the Rivers family, Diana, Mary, and the brother St. John, not St. John. We've already discussed that. Okay, let's see. And also their servant Hannah. And so what we see happening in those two chapters is, you know, Jane realizing she has an affinity and a fondness for this family, and they for her. And so she tells them quite honestly a bit about her past, but she also says, I cannot tell you everything about my past. Some things I have to keep secret, but I would very much appreciate your help finding employment. And what we get to at the end of those chapters is Mr. Rivers, St. John offers Jane employment at the local school. And so she's going to go back to Morton with him and become the school teacher there for young girls, while the two sisters, Diana and Mary, go back to where they're employed as governesses outside of the town. It also ended with an odd little scene there where at the end of chapter 30, where they found out, the Rivers family, that they had a distant relative who'd passed away, and, you know, they were kind of hoping they might inherit something, and they did not. But they're just saying, you know, things happen. It's just, you know, it is what it is. It would have been nice, but this is sort of our lot, and we will go through with this life, and so it is. Before we go on to the next chapters, I did want to give one more reminder, and by when I say one more, I'll do one more at least every day for the next few days, is that I am inviting you to please nominate a title that you think would be fun for us to read together. We are going to be finishing Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte next Friday on May the 29th. So I would very much love for you to nominate, or if you see a book that is a title already suggested that you're interested in, like it. And then next Tuesday, when we start our next read aloud, I'm going to go ahead and pick from the top 3 vote getters what's the book that we're going to read next. And so again, I invite you to go ahead and nominate some book if you haven't seen it there yet on the list. There's a thread in our Tea with Jane Eyre group. Please suggest the title that you'd like to read. It just needs to be from the public domain. But yeah, it's a nice opportunity to get to pick a book that you love, or maybe one that you've never read before that you've always wanted to read. We can explore it together. So let's go ahead and get started on that. And of course, it's nice to have a good mug of tea or whatever it is that you enjoy before you get started. So let's have a sip of this one. That is very good. It is also very hot. I'm going to let this one cool down for a little bit, but that's good. I've had the country peach passion tea before, and that is delicious. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with chapters 31 and 32 of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Chapter 31. My home then, when I at last found a home, is a cottage, a little room with whitewashed walls and sanded floor, containing 4 painted chairs and a table, a clock, a cupboard, with 2 or 3 plates and dishes, and a set of tea things in delf. Above, a chamber of the same dimensions as the kitchen, with a deal bedstead and chest of drawers, small, yet too large to be filled with my scanty wardrobe, though the kindness of my gentle and generous friends has increased that by a modest stock of such things as are necessary. It is evening. I have dismissed, with the fee of an orange, the little orphan who serves me as a handmaid. I am sitting alone on the hearth. This morning the village school opened. I had 20 scholars, but 3 of the number can read, none write or cipher. Several knit, and a few sew a little. They speak with the broadest accent of the district. At present, they and I have a difficulty in understanding each other's language. Some of them are unmannered, rough, intractable, as well as ignorant. But others are docile, have a wish to learn, and evince a disposition that pleases me. I must not forget that these coarsely clad little peasants are of flesh and blood as good as the scions of gentlest genealogy, and that the germs of native excellence, refinement, intelligence, kind feeling are as likely to exist in their hearts as in those of the best born. My duty will be to develop these germs. Surely I shall find some happiness in discharging that office. Much enjoyment I do not expect in the life opening before me, yet it will, doubtless, if I regulate my mind and exert my powers as I ought, yield me enough to live on from day to day. Was I very gleeful, settled, content during the hours I passed in yonder bare, humble schoolroom this morning and afternoon? Not to deceive myself, I must reply, no. I felt desolate to a degree. I felt, yes, idiot that I am, I felt degraded. I doubted I had taken a step which sunk instead of raising me up in the scale of social existence. I was weakly dismayed at the ignorance, the poverty, the coarseness of all I heard and saw around me. But let me not hate and despise myself too much for these feelings. I know them to be wrong. That is a great step gained. I shall strive to overcome them. Tomorrow, I trust, I shall get the better of them partially, and in a few weeks, perhaps, they will be quite subdued. In a few months, it is possible, the happiness of seeing progress and a change for the better of my scholars may substitute gratification for disgust. Meantime, let me ask myself one question. Which is better, to have surrendered to temptation, listened to passion, made no painful effort, no struggle, but to have sunk down in the silken snare, fallen on the flowers covering it, wakened in a southern clime among the luxuries of a pleasure villa, to have been now living in France, Mr. Rochester's mistress, delirious with his love half my time, for he would, oh yes, he would have loved me well for a while. He did love me. No one will ever love me so again. I shall never more know the sweet homage given to beauty, youth, and grace, for never to anyone else shall I seem to possess those charms. He was fond and proud of me. It is what no man besides will ever be. But where am I wandering, and what am I saying, and above all feeling? Whether it is better, I ask, to be a slave in a fool's paradise at Marseille, fevered with delusive bliss one hour, suffocating with the bitterest tears of remorse and shame the next, or to be a village schoolmistress, free and honest in a breezy mountain nook in the healthy heart of England. Yes, I feel now that I was right when I adhered to principle and law, and scorned and crushed the insane promptings of a frenzied moment. God directed me to a correct choice. I thank his providence for the guidance. Having brought my eventide musings to this point, I rose, went to my door, and looked at the sunset of the harvest day, and at the quiet fields before my cottage, which, with the school, was distant half a mile from the village. The birds were singing their last strains. The air was mild, the dew was balm. While I looked, I thought myself happy, and was surprised to find myself ere long weeping. And why? For the doom which had reft me from adhesion to my master. For him I was no more to see. For the desperate grief and fatal fury, consequences of my departure, which might now perhaps be dragging him from the path of right, too far to leave hope of ultimate restoration thither. At this thought, I turned my face aside from the lovely sky of eve and lonely vale of Morton. I say lonely, for in that bend of it visible to me, there was no building apparent save the church and the parsonage, half the trees, and quite at the extremity, the roof of Vale House, where the rich Mr. Oliver and his daughter lived. I hid my face and leaned my head against the frame of my door. But soon a slight noise near the wicket which shut my tiny gate from the meadow beyond is the dog, old Carlo, Mr. River's pointer, as I saw in a moment, was pushing the gate with his nose, and St. John himself leaned upon it with folded arms, his brow knit, his gaze, grave almost to displeasure, fixed on me. I asked him to come in. No, I cannot stay. I have only brought you a little parcel my sisters left for you. I think it contains a color box, pencils, and paper. I approached to take it. A welcome gift it was. He examined my face, I thought with austerity, as I came near. The traces of tears were, doubtless, very visible upon it. Have you found your first day's work harder than you expected? He asked. Oh, no. On the contrary, I think. In time I shall get on with my scholars very well. But perhaps your accommodations, your cottage, your furniture, have disappointed your expectations? They are, in truth, scanty enough, but... I interrupted. My cottage is clean and weatherproof. My furniture sufficient and commodious. All I see has made me thankful, not despondent. I am not absolutely such a fool and sensualist as to regard the absence of a carpet, a sofa, and silver plate. Besides, 5 weeks ago I had nothing. I was an outcast, a beggar, a vagrant. Now I have acquaintance, a home, a business. I wonder at the goodness of God, the generosity of my friends, the bounty of my lot. I do not repine. But you feel solitude and oppression? The little house there behind you is rather dark and empty. I have hardly had time yet to enjoy a sense of tranquility, much less to grow impatient under one of loneliness. Very well. I hope you feel the content you express. At any rate, your good sense will tell you that it is too soon yet to yield to the vacillating fears of Lot's wife. What you had left before I saw you, of course I do not know, but I counsel you to resist firmly every temptation which should incline you to look back. Pursue your present career steadily, for some months at least. It is what I mean to do, I answered. St. John continued, it is hard work to control the workings of inclination and turn the bent of nature, but that it may be done, I know from experience. God has given us in a measure the power to make our own fate, and when our energies seem to demand a sustenance they cannot get, when our will strains after a path we may not follow, we need neither starve from inanition nor stand still in despair. We have but to seek another nourishment for the mind, as strong as the forbidden food it longed to taste, and perhaps purer, and to hew out for the adventurous foot a road as direct and broad as the one fortune has blocked up against us, if rougher than it. A year ago, I was myself intensely miserable because I thought I had made a mistake in entering the ministry. Its uniform duties wearied me to death. I burned for the more active life of the world, for the more exciting toils of a literary career, for the destiny of an artist, author, orator, anything rather than that of a priest. Yes, the heart of a politician, of a soldier, of a votary of glory, a lover of renown, a luster after power, beat under my curate's surplice. I considered my life was so wretched it must be changed or I must die. After a season of darkness and struggling, light broke and relief fell. My cramped existence all at once spread out to a plain without bounds. My powers heard a call from heaven to rise, gather their full strength, spread their wings, and mount beyond ken. God had an errand for me, to bear which afar, to deliver it well. Skill and strength, courage and eloquence, the best qualifications of soldier, statesman, and orator were all needed. For these all center in the good missionary. A missionary I resolved to be. From that moment my state of mind changed. The fetters dissolved and dropped from every faculty, leaving nothing of bondage but its galling soreness, which time only can heal. My father, indeed, opposed the determination, but since his death I have not a legitimate obstacle to contend with. Some affairs settled, a successor for Morton provided, an entanglement or two of the feelings broken through or cut asunder, a last conflict with human weakness in which I know I shall overcome, because I have vowed that I will overcome, and I leave Europe for the East. He said this in his peculiar, subdued, yet emphatic voice, looking, when he had ceased speaking, not at me, but at the setting sun, to which I looked too. Both he and I had our backs toward the path leading up to the field, to the wicket. We had heard no step on that grass-grown track. The water running in the vale was the one lulling sound of the hour and scene. We might well then start when a gay voice, sweet as a silver bell, exclaimed, "Good evening, Mr. Rivers, and good evening, old Carlo. Your dog is quicker to recognize his friends than you are, sir. He pricked his ears and wagged his tail when I was at the bottom of the field, and you have had your back toward me now." It was true. Though Mr. Rivers had started at the first of those musical accents, as if a thunderbolt had split a cloud over his head, he stood yet, at the close of the sentence, in the same attitude in which the speaker had surprised him, his arm resting on the gate, his face directed toward the west. He turned at last with measured deliberation. A vision, as it seemed to me, had risen at his side. There appeared, within 3 feet of him, a form clad in pure white, a youthful, graceful form, full yet fine in contour. And when, after bending to caress Carlo, it lifted up its head and threw back a long veil, there bloomed under his glance a face of perfect beauty. Perfect beauty is a strong expression, but I do not retrace or qualify it. As sweet features as ever the temperate clime of Albion molded, as pure hues of rose and lily as ever her humid gales and vapory skies generated and screened, justified, in this instance, the term. No charm was wanting, no defect was perceptible. The young girl had regular and delicate lineaments, eyes shaped and colored as we see them in lovely pictures, large and dark and full.
Rivali's
the long
gale
and
is now
shadowy
ready.
eyelash which encircles a fine eye with so soft a fascination. The penciled brow which gives such clearness. The white, smooth forehead which adds such repose to the livelier beauties of tint and ray. The cheek, oval, fresh and smooth. The lips fresh too, ruddy, healthy, sweetly formed. The even and gleaming teeth without flaw, the small dimpled chin, the ornament of rich, plenteous tresses, all advantages, in short, which, combined, realized the ideal of beauty, were fully hers. I wondered as I looked at this fair creature. I admired her with my whole heart. Nature had surely formed her in a partial mood, and forgetting her usual stinted stepmother dole of gifts, had endowed this, her darling, with a grandame's bounty. What did St. John Rivers think of this earthly angel? I naturally asked myself that question as I saw him turn to her and look at her, and as naturally I saw the answer to the inquiry in his countenance. He had already withdrawn his eye from the Perry and was looking at a humble tuft of daisies which grew by the wicket. "A lovely evening, but late for you to be out alone," he said, as he crushed the snowy heads of the closed flowers with his foot. "Oh, I only came home from S." She mentioned the name of a large town some 20 miles distant. "This afternoon. Papa told me you had opened your school and that the new mistress was come, and so I put on my bonnet after tea and ran up the valley to see her. This is she," pointing to me. "It is," said St. John. "Do you think you shall like Morton?" she asked of me, with a direct and naive simplicity of tone and manner, pleasing, if childlike. "I hope I shall. I have many inducements to do so." "Did you find your scholars as attentive as you expected?"
Rivali's gale is now ready.
"Do you like your house?" "Very much." "Have I furnished it nicely?" "Very nicely indeed." "And made a good choice of an attendant for you in Alice Wood?" "You have indeed. She is teachable and handy." This, then, I thought, is Miss Oliver, the heiress, favored, it seems, in the gifts of fortune as well as in those of nature. What happy combination of the planets presided over her birth, I wonder? "I shall come up and help you to teach sometimes," she added. "It will be a change for me to visit you now and then, and I like a change. Mr. Rivers, I have been so gay during my stay at S. Last night, or rather this morning, I was dancing till 2 o'clock. The something regiment was stationed there since the riots, and the officers are the most agreeable men in the world. They put all our young knife grinders and scissor merchants to shame." It seemed to me that Mr. St. John's upper lip protruded, and his under lip protruded, and his upper lip curled a moment. His mouth certainly looked a good deal compressed, and the lower part of his face unusually stern and square as the laughing girl gave him this information. He lifted his gaze, too, from the daisies and turned it on her. An unsmiling, a searching, a meaning gaze it was. She answered it with a second laugh, and laughter well became her youth, her roses, her dimples, her bright eyes. As he stood, mute and grave, she again fell to caressing Carlo. "Poor Carlo loves me," said she. "He is not stern and distant to his friends, and if he could speak, he would not be silent." As she patted the dog's head, bending with native grace before his young and austere master, I saw a glow rise to that master's face. I saw his solemn eye melt with sudden fire and flicker with resistless motion. Flushed and kindled thus, he looked nearly as beautiful for a man as she for a woman. His chest heaved once, as if his large heart, weary of despotic constriction, had expanded, despite the will, and made a vigorous bound for the attainment of liberty. But he curbed it, I think, as a resolute rider would curb a rearing steed. He responded neither by word nor movement to the gentle advances made him. "Papa says you never come to see us now," continued Miss Oliver, looking up. "You are quite a stranger at Vale Hall. He is alone this evening and not very well. Will you return with me and visit him?" "It is not a seasonable hour to intrude on Mr. Oliver," answered St. John. "Not a seasonable hour? But I declare it is. It is just the hour when Papa most wants company, when the works are closed and he has no business to occupy him. Now, Mr. Rivers, do come. Why are you so very shy and so very somber?" She filled up the hiatus of silent sleep by a reply of her own. "I forgot," she exclaimed, shaking her beautiful curled head as if shocked on herself. "I am so giddy and thoughtless. Do excuse me. It had slipped my memory that you have good reasons to be indisposed for joining in my chatter. Diana and Mary have left you, and Morehouse is shut up, and you are so lonely. I am sure I pity you. Do come and see Papa." "Not tonight, Miss Rosamond. Not tonight." Mr. St. John spoke almost like an automaton. Himself only knew the effort it cost him thus to refuse. "Well, if you are so obstinate, I will leave you, for I dare not stay any longer. The dew begins to fall. Good evening." She held out her hand. He just touched it. "Good evening," he repeated, in a voice low and hollow as an echo. She turned, but in a moment returned. "Are you well?" she asked. Well might she put the question. His face was blanched as her gown. "Quite well," he enunciated, and with a bow he left the gate. She went one way, he another. She turned twice to gaze after him as she tripped fairy-like down the field. He, as he strode firmly across, never turned at all. This spectacle of another's suffering and sacrifices wrapped my thoughts from exclusive meditation on my own. Diana Rivers had designated her brother inexorable as death. She had not exaggerated. Right. Chapter 32. I continued the labors of the village school as actively and faithfully as I could. It was truly hard work at first. Some time elapsed before, with all my efforts, I could comprehend my scholars and their nature. Wholly untaught and quite torpid, they seemed to me hopelessly dull, and at first sight, all dull alike. But I soon found I was mistaken. There was a difference among them as among the educated, and when I got to know them, and they me, this difference rapidly developed itself. Their amazement at me, my language, my rules and ways, once subsided, I found some of these heavy-looking, gaping rustics wake up into sharp-witted girls enough. Many showed themselves obliging and amiable too, and I discovered among them not a few examples of natural politeness and innate self-respect, as well as an excellent capacity that won both my goodwill and my admiration. These soon took a pleasure in doing their work well, in keeping their persons neat, in learning their tasks regularly, in acquiring quiet and orderly manners. The rapidity of their progress in some instances was even surprising, and an honest and happy pride I took in it. Besides, I began personally to like some of the best girls, and they liked me. I had among my scholars several farmers' daughters, young women grown almost. These could already read, write, and sew, and to them I taught the elements of grammar, geography, history, and the finer kinds of needlework. I found estimable characters among them. characters desirous of information and disposed for improvement, with whom I passed many a pleasant evening hour in their own homes. Their parents then, the farmer and his wife, loaded me with attentions. There was an enjoyment in accepting their simple kindness and repaying it by a consideration, a scrupulous regard to their feelings, to which they were not perhaps at all times accustomed, and which both charmed and benefited them, because while it elevated them in their own eyes, it made them emulous to merit the deferential treatment they received. I felt I became a favorite in the neighborhood. Whenever I went out, I heard on all sides cordial salutations and was welcomed with friendly smiles. To live amid general regard, though it be but the regard of working people, is like sitting in sunshine, calm and sweet. Serene inward feelings bud and bloom under the ray. At this period of my life, my heart far oftener swelled with thankfulness than sunk with dejection. And yet, reader, to tell you all, in the midst of this calm, this useful existence, after a day passed in honorable exertion among my scholars, and evenings spent in drawing or reading contentedly alone, I used to rush into strange dreams at night, dreams many-colored, agitated, full of the ideal, the stirring, the stormy, dreams where amid unusual scenes charged with adventure, with agitating risk and romantic chance, I still, again and again, met Mr. Rochester, always at some exciting crisis, and then the sense of being in his arms, hearing his voice, meeting his eye, touching his hand and cheek, loving him, being loved by him. The hope of passing a lifetime at his side would be renewed with all its first force and fire. Then I awoke. Then I recalled where I was and how situated, and then the still, dark night witnessed the convulsion of despair and heard the burst of passion. By 9 o'clock the next morning, I was punctually opening the school, tranquil, settled, prepared for the steady duties of the day. Rosamond Oliver kept her word in coming to visit me. Her call at the school was generally made in the course of her morning ride. She would canter up to the door on her pony, followed by a mounted livery servant. Anything more exquisite than her appearance, in her purple habit, with her Amazon's cap of black velvet placed gracefully above the long curls that kissed her cheek and floated to her shoulders, can scarcely be imagined. And it was thus she would enter the rustic building and glide through the dazzled ranks of the village children. She generally came at the hour when Mr. Rivers was engaged in giving his daily catechism lesson. Keenly, I fear, did the eye of the young visitress pierce the young pastor's heart. A sort of instinct seemed to warn him of her entrance, even when he did not see it. And when he was looking quite away from the door, if she appeared at it, his cheek would glow, and his marble-seeming features, though they refused to relax, changed indescribably, and in their very quiescence became expressive of a repressed fervor, stronger than the working muscles or darting glance could indicate. Of course, she knew her power. Indeed, he did not, because he could not, conceal it from her. In spite of his Christian stoicism, when she went up and addressed him and smiled gaily, encouragingly, even fondly in his face, his hand would tremble and his eye burn. He seemed to say with his sad and resolute look, if he did not say it with his lips, "I love you, and I know you prefer me. It is not despair of success that keeps me dumb. If I offered my heart, I believe you would accept it. But that heart is already laid on a sacred altar. The fire is arranged around it. It will soon be no more than a sacrifice consumed." And then she would pout like a disappointed child. A pensive cloud would soften her radiant vivacity. She would withdraw her hand hastily from his and turn in transient petulance from his aspect, at once so heroic and so martyr-like. St. John, no doubt, would have given the world to follow, recall, retain her when she thus left him. But he would not give one chance of heaven, nor relinquish for the Elysium of her love one hope of the true eternal paradise. Besides, he could not bound all that he had in his nature, the rover, the aspirant, the poet, the priest, in the limits of a single passion. He could not, he would not, renounce his wild field of mission warfare for the parlors and the peace of Vale Hall. I learned so much from himself, and an inroad I once, despite his reserve, had the daring to make on his confidence. Miss Oliver already honored me with frequent visits to my cottage. I had learned her whole character, which was without mystery or disguise. She was coquettish, but not heartless, exacting, but not worthlessly selfish. She had been indulged from her birth, but was not absolutely spoiled. She was hasty but good-humored, vain. She could not help it when every glance in the glass showed her such a flush of loveliness, but not affected. Liberal-handed, innocent of the pride of wealth, ingenuous, sufficiently intelligent, gay, lively, and unthinking. She was very charming, in short, even to a cool observer of her own sex like me, but she was not profoundly interesting or thoroughly impressive. A very different sort of mind was hers from that, for instance, of the Sisters of St. John. Still, I liked her almost as I liked my pupil Adele, except that, for a child whom we have watched over and taught, a closer affection is engendered than we can give an equally attractive adult acquaintance. She had taken an amiable caprice to me. She said I was like Mr. Rivers, only certainly, she allowed, not one-tenth so handsome, though I was a nice, neat little soul enough, but he was an angel. I was, however, good, clever, composed, and firm, like him. I was a lusus naturae, a freak or jest of nature, she affirmed, as a village or schoolmistress. She was sure my previous history, if known, would make a delightful romance. One evening, while with her usual childlike activity and thoughtless yet not offensive inquisitiveness, she was rummaging the cupboard and the table drawer of my little kitchen. She discovered first 2 French books, a volume of Schiller, a German grammar and dictionary, and then my drawing materials and some sketches, including a pencil head of a pretty little cherub-like girl, one of my scholars, and sundry views from nature taken in the Vale of Morton and on the surrounding moors. She was first transfixed with surprise and then electrified with delight. Had I done those pictures?
This thing is fast.
I know German and French.
Watch yourself.
What a love! What a miracle I was! I drew better than her master in the first school in S. Would I sketch a portrait of her and show it to Papa? With pleasure, I replied, and I felt a thrill of artist's delight at the idea of copying from so perfect and radiant a model. She had then on a dark blue silk dress. Her arms and her neck were bare. Her only ornament was her chestnut tresses, which waved over her shoulders with all the wild grace of natural curls. I took a sheet of fine cardboard and drew a careful outline. I promised myself the pleasure of coloring it, and as it was getting late then, I told her she must come and sit another day. She made such a report of me to her father that Mr. Oliver himself accompanied her next evening. A tall, massive-featured, headed man, at whose side his lovely daughter looked like a bright flower under a broad skirt. He appeared a taciturn and perhaps a proud personage, but he was very kind to me. The sketch of Rosamond's portrait pleased him highly. He said I must make a finished portrait of it. He insisted, too, on my coming the next day to spend the evening at Vale Hall. I went. I found it a large, handsome residence, showing abundant evidences of wealth in the proprietor. Rosamond was full of glee and pleasure all the time I stayed. Her father was affable, and when he entered into conversation with me after tea, he expressed in strong terms his approbation of what I had done in Norton schools, and said he only feared from what he saw in her was too good a place, just like one more suitable. Indeed, cried Rosamond, she is clever enough to be a governess in a high family, Papa. I thought I would far rather be where I am than in any high family in the land. Mr. Oliver spoke of Mr. Rivers, of the Rivers family, with great respect. He said it was a very real name in that neighborhood, that the ancestors of the house were wealthy, that all Morton had once belonged to them, that even now he considered the representative of that house might, if he liked, be the best. He counted it a pity that so fine and talented a young man should have formed the design of going out as a missionary. It was quite throwing a valuable life away. It appeared then that her father would throw no obstacle in the way of Rosamond's union with St. John. Mr. Oliver evidently regarded the young clergyman's good birth, old age, and civil profession as sufficient compensation for the want of fortune. It was the 5th of November, and a holiday. My little servant, after helping me to clean my house, was gone, well satisfied with the fee of a penny for the day. All about me was spotless and bright, scoured floor, polished grate, and well-rubbed chairs. I had also made myself neat, and had now the afternoon before me to spend as I would. The translation of a few pages of German. Then I got my palette and pieces and fell to more seeming, because easier, occupation of composing Rosamond Oliver's miniature. There was but the background to tint and the drapery to shade off. A touch of carmine to add to the ripe lips, the soft curl here and there to the tresses, a deeper tinge in the shadow of the lash under the antlered eyelid. I was absorbed in the execution of these nice details when, after one rapid tap, my door unclosed and immediately said gently, "I am come to see how you are spending your holiday," he said. "Not, I hope, in thought? Well, that is well. You see, I mistrust you still. Though you have borne up wonderfully so far, I have brought you a book for evening solace." And he laid on the table a new publication. One of those genuine productions so often vouchsafed to the proportionate public of those days, the golden age of modern literature. Alas, the readers of our era are less favored. But courage, I will not cause others to accuse or repine. I know poetry is not dead, nor genius lost, nor has mammon gained power over either to bind or slay. They will both ascend to their existence, their presence, their liberty and strength again one day. Powerful angels, safe in heaven, they smile when slowly the ones weep over their destruction.
Find a way around that.
Poetry destroyed? Genius vanished? No. Mediocrity? No. Do not let envy prompt you to the thought. No. They not only live, but reign and redeem. And without their divine influence spread everywhere, you would be in hell, the hell of your own meanness. While I was eagerly glancing at the bright pages of the Army, it was, St. John to examine my drawing. His tall figure sprang erect again with a start. He said nothing. I looked up at him. He shunned my eye. I knew his thoughts well, and could read his heart plainly. At the moment, I felt calmer and cooler than he. I had then temporarily and I conceived an inclination to do him some good if I could. With all his firmness and self-control, thought I, he tasks himself too much, or too far, locks every feeling and pain within, expresses, caresses, imparts nothing. I am sure it would benefit you to talk a little about the sweet Rosamond, whom he thinks he ought not to marry. I will make him talk. I said first, "Take a chair, Mr. Rivers," but he answered as he did that he could not stay. "Very well," I responded mentally. "Stay if you like, but you shall not go just yet," I determined. "Solitude is at least as bad for you as it is for me. I'll try if I cannot discover the secret spring of your confidence and find an aperture in that marble breast through which I can shed one drop of the balm of sympathy."
This guy's kind of tough.
"Is this portrait like?" I asked bluntly. "Like? Like whom?" I did not observe it closely. "You did, Mr. Rivers." He almost started at my sudden and strange abruptness. He looked at me astonished. "Oh, that is nothing yet," I muttered within. "I don't mean to be baffled by a little stiffness on your part. I'm prepared to go to considerable lengths." I continued, "You observed it closely and distinctly, but I have no objection to your looking at it again." And I rose and placed it in his hand. "A well-executed picture," he said. "Very soft, clear coloring, very graceful and correct drawing." Yes, I know all that. But what of the resemblance? Who is it like?" Mastering some hesitation, he answered, "Miss Oliver, I presume." "Of course. And now, sir, to reward you for the accurate guess, I will promise to paint you a careful and faithful duplicate of this very picture, provided you admit that the gift would be acceptable to you. I don't wish to throw away my time and trouble on an offering you would deem worthless." He continued to gaze at the picture.
Watch yourself.
The longer he looked, the firmer he held it, the more he seemed to covet it. "It is like," he murmured. "The eye is well managed, color, light, expression, perfect. It smiles. Would it comfort or would it wound you to have a similar painting? Tell me that. When you are at Madagascar or in India, would it be a consolation to have that memento present? The sight of it will bring recollections calculated to enervate your distress." He now furtively raised his eyes. He glanced at me irresolute, disturbed. He again surveyed the picture. "That I would like to have it is certain. Whether it be
Unleash your powers.
is another question." Since I had ascertained that he was not race and that my father was not likely to oppose the match, I, less exalted in my views than Susan, had been strongly disposed in my own heart to advocate their union. It seemed to me that, should he become the possessor of Mr. Alden's large fortune, he might do as much with it as if he went and laid his genius out to wither and his strength to waste under a tropical sun. With this persuasion, I now answered, as far as I can see, it would be wiser and more judicious if you were to take to yourself the original at once. By this time he had sat down. He had laid the picture on the table before him, and with his brows supported in both hands, hung fondly over it. I discerned he was now neither angry nor shocked at my audience. I saw even that to be thus frankly addressed in a subject he had been unapproachable, to hear it thus freely handled, was beginning to be felt by him as a new pleasure, an unhoped-for relief. Reserved people often really need the frank discussion of their sentiments and griefs more than the expansive. The sternest seeming stoic is human after all, and to burst with boldness and goodwill into the silent sea of their souls is often to confer on them the first of obligations. She likes you, I am sure, said I, as I stood before her, and her father respects you. Moreover, she is a girl, rather thoughtless, and you have sufficient thought for both yourselves and her. You ought to marry her. Does she like me? He asked. Certainly, better than she likes anyone else. She talks of you continually. There is no subject she enjoys so much or touches upon so often. It is very pleasant to hear this, he said. Very. Go on for another quarter of an hour. And he actually took out his watch and laid it upon the table to measure the time. But where is the use of going on? I asked. Before probably preparing some iron blow of contradiction or forging a fresh chain to fetter your heart.
I'm struggling.
Don't imagine such hard things. Fancy me yielding and melting as I am doing. Human love rising like a freshly opened fountain in my mind and overflowing with sweet inundation all the field I have so carefully and with such labor prepared, so assiduously sown with the seeds of good intentions, of self-denying plans. And now it is deluged with the nectareous flood, the young germs swamped, delicious poison cankering them. Now I see myself stretched on an ottoman in the drawing room at Vale Hall, at my bride Rosamond Oliver's feet. She is talking to me with her sweet voice, gazing down on me with those eyes your skillful hand has copied so well, smiling at me with those coral lips. She is mine. I am hers. This present life and passing world suffice to me. Hush, say nothing. My heart is full of delight, my senses are entranced. Let the time I marked pass in peace. I humored him. The watch ticked on. He breathed fast and low. I stood silent. Amid this hush the quarter sped. He replaced the watch, laid the picture down, rose, and stood on the hearth. Now, said he, that little space was given to delirium and delusion.
This thing
I
is
rested
fast.
my temples
Watch
on the breast
yourself.
of temptation and put my neck voluntarily under the growth of flowers. I tasted her cup. The pillow was burning with ass when the garlic, the wine has a bitter taste. Her promises are false. Her offers false. I see. I know. I gazed at him in wonder. It is strange, pursued he, that while I love Rosamond Oliver so wildly, with all the intensity indeed of a first passion, the object of which is exquisitely beautiful, graceful, and fascinating, I experienced at the same time a calm, unworldly consciousness that she would not make me a good wife,
Now
that she was not the partner suited to me, that I should discover this within a year after marriage, and that in 12 months
Just like
rapture
that.
succeed a lifetime of regret. This I know. Strange indeed, I could not help ejaculating. Well, something in me, he went on, is acutely sensible to her charms. Something else is as deeply impressed with her defects. They are such that she could sympathize in nothing I aspired to. Cooperate in nothing I undertook. Rosamond, a sufferer, a laborer, a female apostle. Rosamond, a missionary. His wife? No. But you need not be a missionary. You might relinquish that scheme. Relinquish? What? My vocation? My great work? My foundation laid on earth for a mansion in heaven? My hopes of being numbered as a man who have merged all ambitions in a glorious one, of bettering their race, of carrying knowledge into the realms of ignorance, of substituting peace for war, freedom for bondage, religion for superstition, the hope of heaven for the fear of hell? Must I relinquish that? It is dearer than the blood in my veins. It is what I have to look forward to and to live for. After a considerable pause, I said, "And Miss Oliver, are her disappointments and sorrow of no interest to you?" Miss Oliver is ever surrounded by suitors and flatterers. In less than a month, my image will be effaced from her heart. She will forget me and will marry, probably someone who will make her far happier than I should do. You speak coolly enough, but you suffer in the conflict. You are wasting away. No. If I get a little thin, it is with anxiety about my prospects yet unsettled. My departure continually procrastinated. Only this morning I received intelligence that the successor, whose arrival I've been so long expecting, cannot be ready to replace me in 3 months to come yet, and perhaps the 3 months makes it 6. You tremble to become flesh and never Miss Oliver enters the schoolroom. Again, the surprised expression crossed his face. He had not imagined that a woman would dare to speak so to a man. For me, I felt at home in this sort of discourse. I could never rest in communication with strong, discreet, and refined minds, whether male or female, till I had passed the outpost of conventional reserve and crossed the threshold of confidence. You are and not timid. There is something brave in your spirit and penetrating in your mind. But allow me to reassure you that you partially misinterpret my sympathy. You think them more profound and potent than they are. Give me a larger allowance of sympathy than I have a just claim to. When I color, I do not pity myself. I scorn the weakness. I know it is ignoble, a mere fever of the flesh, not, I declare, a convulsion of the soul. That is the depths of a restless sea. Know me to be what I am, a cold, hard man. I smiled incredulously. You have taken my confidence by storm, he continued, and now it is much at your service. I am simply, in my original state, stripped of that blood-bleached robe with which Christianity covers human deformity, a cold, hard, ambitious man. Natural affection only, of all the sentiments, has permanent power over me. Reason, and not feeling, is my guide. My ambition is unlimited. My desire to rise higher, to do more than others, insatiable. I honor endurance, perseverance, industry, talent, because these are the means by which men achieve great ends and mount to lofty eminence. I watch your career with interest because I consider you a specimen of a diligent, orderly, energetic woman, not because I deeply compassionate what you have gone through or what you still suffer. You would describe yourself as a mere pagan philosopher, I said. No, there is a difference between me and the deistic philosophers. I believe, and I believe the gospel. You missed your epithet. I am not a pagan, but a Christian philosopher, a follower of the sect of Jesus. As his disciple, I adopt his pure, his merciful, his benignant doctrines. I advocate them. I am sworn to spread them. One in youth to religion, she has cultivated my original qualities thus. From the minute germ, natural affection, she has developed the overshadowing tree, philanthropy. From the wild, stingy root of human uprightness, she has reared a due sense of the divine justice. Of the ambition to win power and renown for my wretched self, she has formed the ambition to spread my master's kingdom, to achieve victories for the standard of the cross. So much has religion done for me, turning the original materials to the best account, pruning and training nature. But she could not eradicate nature, nor will it be eradicated,
which has
so
come
this
to be
mortal
known
shall
as
put on immortality. Having said this, he
It
took
will
his
no
hat,
doubt
which lay on
be
the
of
table
use
beside
to
my
you.
palette. Once more he looked at the portrait. She is lovely, he murmured. She is well named, the rose of the world, indeed. And may I paint one like it for you? Cui bono? pool benefit? No. He drew over the picture the sheet of thin paper on which I was accustomed to rest my hand in painting to prevent the cardboard from being sullied.
But
What he suddenly saw on this blank paper, it was impossible for me to tell. But something had caught his eye.
Make it clear so
he took
she
it up with a
understands
snatch.
that.
He looked at the edge, then shot a glance at me, inexpressibly peculiar and quite incomprehensible, a glance that seemed to take and make note of every point in my shape, face, and dress, for it traversed all, quick, keen as lightning.
And also,
His lips parted as if to speak, but he checked the coming sentence, whatever it was. "What is the matter?" I asked. "Nothing in the world," was the reply. And replacing the paper, I saw him dexterously tear a narrow strip from the margin. It disappeared in his glove. With one hasty nod and "Good afternoon," he vanished. "Well," I exclaimed, using an expression of the district, "that caps the globe, however." I in turn scrutinized the paper, but saw nothing on it, save a few dingy stains of paint where I had tried the tint in my pencil. I pondered the mystery a minute or two, but finding it insolvable and being certain it would not be of much moment, I dismissed and soon forgot it. All right. So that concludes chapter 32 of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I'll see you guys again tomorrow for chapter 33. And again, I encourage you to please nominate a book that you would like to read next together. Or if you see a book that's been suggested that you would love to read, go ahead and give it a like. Like I said, the 3 titles with the most votes will be the ones that I'll pick from next Tuesday. Thank you guys very much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much for coming to read with me and have tea. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, welcome back. It's Christina Wainwright, the manager at the Pacific Beach Library. We're ready to start on, I believe it's day 28 of our Read Aloud Together with Jane Eyre. And we're getting really close to the end. We're at chapter 33. And let me just count and see. There are 38 chapters in the book. So we've got one more day of double chapters. We'll do that next Wednesday. But we are so close to wrapping up. Please, if you haven't already done so, I encourage you to go ahead and vote online. Nominate a book that you'd like us to read next. Or if you see something that's already been nominated, go ahead and click that you like it. If there's multiple titles you'd be interested in reading, go ahead and click them all. We're just going to read one next. But, say anything that you're interested in, so that way we can have that in the running for being the book that we'll select for next, for the read that will start in June, which is week after next, right around the corner. So for today's tea, I have a kind of special mystery tea.
Legend as well. Isn't that
I went before work to do an errand with my mom, and of course, she sent me off with a packed lunch and 2 thermoses of tea. I already drank one with my lunch. And this one I suspect is going to be the same tea that I had earlier, but I don't know. It's like I said, it's a mystery to me as well as to you, so let's pour out and see what we get. I think it is the same tea that I had with my lunch.
And that will make this victory all the more satisfying.
Yep, get my cha. Just a simple brown tea. Whoops.
I like
I need to turn off my
now
ringer.
I can
Excuse
take
me.
this personally.
All right. Sorry about that. That was a good little thing, a good timing that it happened right at the beginning, though, instead of in the middle of a dramatic part of our chapter. So let's go ahead and recap what happened in our last 2 chapters. In chapters 31 and 32, Jane was getting settled into her new role as the teacher at Morton. She was also getting to know St. John Rivers better. And so what we see in that first chapter was, let's see. She was getting to, she started at the school, she got settled in there, and she met Rosamond Oliver, who is the kind of like the benefactress of the school. Her father, Mr. Oliver, is the only wealthy man in town who runs a factory there. And we discover that Miss Oliver has a crush on St. John Rivers, and Miss St. John Rivers also has a crush on Miss Oliver. However, because nothing ever goes smoothly in Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, St. John doesn't feel that Miss Oliver is an appropriate partner for him because he wants to go to be a missionary in India. And so if he were to leave and go be a missionary somewhere else, he doesn't feel she'd be a good missionary's wife. That beautiful though she is, and though he's infatuated with her, he doesn't see her as a partner. And so that they could live together well and for the years to come. And so even though he has feelings for her, he very sternly suppresses them. And what we saw at the end of that last chapter, of chapter 32, was that Jane was trying to encourage him to indulge the possibility of having a relationship with Miss Oliver. And again, he shut that down. But right before he left her cottage, he saw something that caught his eye. He saw it on a little strip on a paper that she was using to blot the drawing, or to protect the drawing that she was doing. And he saw something on that strip of paper. He ripped off a corner of it and he put it in his glove. And he didn't explain himself at all. He left rather abruptly after that. And she has no idea what it was. And so let's see if in this next chapter we get the mystery solved. Hint, we will get the mystery solved. It's coming right away in the 2 pages from now. So let's go ahead and read chapter 33 of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And in case you don't make it all the way to the very end with me, please go in and vote on what we should read next. It's so exciting to get to choose our next book. But this one, we've got a couple more chapters left to go, so let's see what happens today in chapter 33 of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. All right, let's go on in. When Mr. St. John went, it was beginning to snow. The whirling storm continued all night. The next day, a keen wind brought fresh and blinding falls. By twilight, the valley was drifted up and almost impassable. I had closed my shutter, laid a mat to the door to prevent the snow from blowing in under it, trimmed my fire, and after sitting nearly an hour on the hearth, listening to the muffled fury of the tempest, I lighted a candle, took down Marmion, and beginning, day set on Norham's castled steep, and Tweed's fair river, broad and deep, and Cheviot mountains lone, the massive towers, the donjon keep, the flanking walls that round them sweep, in yellow yet lustre shone. I soon forgot storm in music. I heard a noise. The wind, I thought, shook the door. No, it was St. John Rivers, who, lifting the latch, came in out of the frozen hurricane, the howling darkness, and stood before me, the cloak that covered his tall figure all white as a glacier. I was almost in consternation. So little had I expected any guest from the blocked-up vale that night. Any ill news? I demanded. Has anything happened? No. How very easily alarmed you are, he answered, removing his cloak and hanging it up against the door, toward which he again coolly pushed the mat which his entrance had deranged. He stamped the snow from his boots. I shall sully the purity of your floor, said he, but you must excuse me for once. Then he approached the fire. I have had hard work to get here, I assure you, he observed, as he warmed his hands over the flame. One drift took me up to the waist. Happily, the snow is quite soft yet. But why are you come? I could not forbear saying. Rather an inhospitable question to put to a visitor, but since you ask it, I answer, simply, to have a little talk with you. I got tired of my mute books and empty rooms. Besides, since yesterday, I have experienced the excitement of a person to whom a tale has been half told, and who is impatient to hear the sequel. He sat down. I recalled his singular conduct of yesterday, and really, I began to fear his wits were touched. If he were insane, however, his was a very cool and collected insanity. I had never seen that handsome-featured face of his look more like chiseled marble than it did just now, as he put aside his snow-wet hair from his forehead and let the firelight shine free on his pale brow and cheek as pale, where it grieved me to discover the hollow trace of care or sorrow now so plainly graved. I waited, expecting he would say something I could at least comprehend, but his hand was now at his chin, his finger on his lip. He was thinking. It struck me that his hand looked wasted like his face. A perhaps uncalled-for gush of pity came over my heart. I was moved to say, I wish Diana or Mary would come and live with you. It is too bad that you should be quite alone, and you are recklessly rash about your own health. Not at all, said he. I care for myself when necessary. I am well now. What do you see amiss in me? This was said with a careless, abstracted indifference, which showed that my solicitude was, at least in his opinion, wholly superfluous. I was silenced. He still slowly moved his finger over his upper lip, and still his eye dwelt dreamily on the glowing grate. Thinking it urgent to say something, I asked him presently if he felt any cold draught from the door, which was behind him. No, he responded, shortly and somewhat testily. Well, I reflected, if you won't talk, you may be still. I'll let you alone now and return to my book. So I snuffed the candle and resumed the perusal of Marmion. He soon stirred. My eye was instantly drawn to his movements. He only took out a Morocco pocketbook, thence produced a letter which he read in silence, folded it, put it back, relapsed into meditation. It was vain to try to read with such an inscrutable fixture before me, nor could I, in my impatience, consent to be dumb. He might rebuff me if he liked, but talk I would. Have you heard from Diana and Mary lately? Not since the letter I showed you a week ago. There has not been any change made about your own arrangements? You will not be summoned to leave England sooner than you expected? I fear not indeed. Such chance is too good to befall me. Baffled so far, I changed my ground. I bethought myself to talk about the school and my scholars. Mary Garrett's mother is better, and Mary came back to the school this morning, and I shall have 4 new girls next week from the foundry close. They would have come today but for the snow. Indeed? Mr. Oliver pays for 2. Does he? He means to give the whole school a treat at Christmas. I know. Was it your suggestion? No. Whose then? His daughters, I think. It is like her. She is so good-natured. Yes. Again came the blank of a pause. The clock struck 8 strokes. It roused him. He uncrossed his legs, sat erect, turned to me. Leave your book a moment and come a little nearer the fire, he said. Wondering, and of my wonder finding no end, I complied. Half an hour ago, he pursued, I spoke of my impatience to hear the sequel of a tale. On reflection, I find the matter will be better managed by my assuming the narrator's part and converting you into a listener. Before commencing, it is but fair to warn you that the story will sound somewhat hackneyed in your ears, but stale details often regain a degree of freshness when they pass through new lips. For the rest, whether trite or novel, it is short. 20 years ago, a poor curate, never mind his name at this moment, fell in love with a rich man's daughter. She fell in love with him and married him, against the advice of all her friends, who consequently disowned her immediately after the wedding. Before 2 years passed, the rash pair were both dead and laid quietly side by side under one slab. I have seen their grave. It formed part of the pavement of a huge churchyard surrounding the grim, soot-black old cathedral of an overgrown manufacturing town in, sure. They left a daughter, which, at its very birth, Charity received in her lap. Cold as that of the snowdrift I almost stuck fast in tonight. Charity carried the friendless thing to the house of its rich maternal relations. It was reared by an aunt-in-law called, I come to names now, Mrs. Reed of Gateshead. You start. Did you hear a noise? I dare say it is only a rat scrambling along the rafters of the adjoining schoolroom. It was a barn before I had it repaired and altered, and barns are generally haunted with rats. To proceed. Mrs. Reed kept the orphan 10 years. Whether it was happy or not with her, I cannot say, never having been told. But at the end of that time, she transferred it to a place you know, being no other than Lowood School, where you so long resided yourself. It seems her career there was very honorable. From a pupil, she became a teacher, like yourself. Really, it strikes me there are parallel points in her history and yours. She left it to be a governess. There again, your fates are analogous. She undertook the education of the ward of a certain Mr. Rochester. Mr. Rivers, I interrupted. I can guess your feelings, he said, but restrain them for a while. I have nearly finished. Hear me to the end. Of Mr. Rochester's character I know nothing, but the one fact that he professed to offer honorable marriage to this young girl, and that at the very altar she discovered he had a wife yet alive, though a lunatic. What his subsequent conduct and proposals were is a matter of pure conjecture. But when an event transpired which rendered inquiry after the governess necessary, it was discovered she was gone. No one could tell when, where, or how. She had left Thornfield Hall in the night. Every research after her course had been in vain. The country had been scoured far and wide. No vestige of information could be gathered respecting her. Yet that she should be found is become a matter of serious urgency. Advertisements have been put in all the papers. I myself have received a letter from one Mr. Briggs, the solicitor, communicating the details I have just imparted. Is it not an odd tale? Just tell me this, said I, and since you know so much, you surely can tell it me. What of Mr. Rochester? How and where is he? What is he doing? Is he well? I am ignorant of all concerning Mr. Rochester. The letter never mentions him but to narrate the fraudulent and illegal attempt I have averted to. You should rather ask the name of the governess, the nature of the event which requires her appearance. Did no one go to Thornfield Hall then? Did no one see Mr. Rochester? I suppose not. But they wrote to him? Of course. And what did he say? Who has his letters? Mr. Briggs intimates that the answer to his application was not from Mr. Rochester, but from a lady. It is signed Alice Fairfax. I felt cold and dismayed. My worst fears then were probably true. He had in all probability left England and rushed in reckless desperation to some former haunt on the continent. And what opiate for his severe sufferings, what object for his strong passions had he sought there? I dared not answer the question. Oh, my poor master, once almost my husband, whom I had often called my dear Edward. He must have been a bad man, observed Mr. Rivers. You don't know him. Don't pronounce an opinion upon him, I said with warmth. Very well, he answered quietly. And indeed, my head is otherwise occupied than with him. I have my tale to finish. Since you won't ask the governess's name, I must tell it of my own accord. Stay, I have it here. It is always more satisfactory to see important points written down, fairly committed to black and white. And the pocketbook was again deliberately produced, opened, sought through. From one of its compartments was extracted a shabby slip of paper, hastily torn off. I recognized in its texture and its stains of ultramarine and lake and vermilion the ravished margin of the portrait cover. He got up, held it close to my eyes, and I read, traced in Indian ink in my own handwriting, the words, Jane Eyre, the work, doubtless, of some moment of abstraction. Briggs wrote to me of a Jane Eyre, he said. The advertisements demanded a Jane Eyre. I knew a Jane Elliot. I confess I had my suspicions, but it was only yesterday afternoon they were at once resolved into certainty. You own the name and renounce the alias? Yes, but where is Mr. Briggs? He perhaps knows more of Mr. Rochester than you do. Briggs is in London. I should doubt his knowing anything at all about Mr. Rochester. It is not in Mr. Rochester he is interested. Meantime, you forget essential points in pursuing trifles. You do not inquire why Mr. Briggs sought after you, what he wanted with you. Well, what did he want? Merely to tell you that your uncle, Mr. Eyre of Madeira, is dead, that he has left you all his property, and that you are now rich. Merely that. Nothing more. I? Rich? Yes, you, rich. Quite an heiress. Silence succeeded. You must prove your identity, of course, resumed St. John presently, a step which will offer no difficulties. You can then enter on immediate possession. Your fortune is vested in the English funds. Briggs has the will and the necessary documents. Here was a new card turned up. It is a fine thing, reader, to be lifted in a moment from indigence to wealth. A very fine thing, but not a matter one can comprehend or consequently enjoy all at once. And then there are other chances in life far more thrilling and rapture-giving. This is solid, an affair of the actual world, nothing ideal about it. All its associations are solid and sober, and its manifestations are the same. One does not jump and spring and shout hurrah at hearing one has got a fortune. One begins to consider responsibilities and to ponder business. On a base of steady satisfaction rise certain grave cares, and we contain ourselves and brood over our bliss with a solemn brow. Besides the words legacy, bequest goes side by side with the words death, funeral. My uncle, I had heard, was dead, my only relative. Ever since being made aware of his existence, I had cherished the hope of one day seeing him. Now I never should. And then this money came only to me, not to me and a rejoicing family, but to my isolated self. It was a grand boon, doubtless, and independence would be glorious. Yes, I felt that. That thought swelled my heart. You unbend your forehead at last, said Mr. Rivers. I thought Medusa had looked at you and that you were turning to stone. Perhaps now you will ask how much you are worth? How much am I worth? Oh, a trifle. Nothing to speak of. 20,000 pounds, I think they say. But what is that? 20,000 pounds? Here was a new stunner. I had been calculating on 4,000 or 5,000. This news actually took my breath for a moment. Mr. St. John, whom I had never heard laugh before, laughed now. Well, said he, if you had committed a murder and I had told you your crime was discovered, you could scarce look more aghast. It is a large sum. Don't you think there is a mistake? No mistake at all. Perhaps you've read the figures wrong. It may be 2,000? It is written in letters, not figures. 20,000. I again felt rather like an individual of but average gastronomical powers, sitting down to feast alone at a table spread with provisions for 100. Mr. Rivers rose now and put his cloak on. If it were not such a very wild night, he said, I would send Hannah down to keep you company. You look too desperately miserable to be left alone. But Hannah, poor woman, could not stride the drifts so well as I. Her legs are not quite so long, so I must even leave you to your sorrows. Good night. He was lifting the latch. A sudden thought occurred to me. Stop 1 minute, I cried. Well? It puzzles me to know why Mr. Briggs wrote to you about me, or how he knew you, or could fancy that you, living in such an out-of-the-way place, had the power to aid in my discovery. Oh, I am a clergyman, he said, and the clergy are often appealed to about odd matters. Again, the latch rattled. No, that does not satisfy me, I exclaimed, and indeed there was something in the hasty and unexplanatory reply, which instead of allaying, piqued my curiosity more than ever. It is a very strange piece of business, I added. I must know more about it. Another time. No, tonight. And as he turned from the door, I placed myself between it and him. He looked rather embarrassed. You certainly shall not go till you have told me all, I said. I would rather not, just now. You shall. You must. I would rather Diana or Mary informed you. Of course, these objections wrought my eagerness to a climax. Gratified it must be, and that without delay, and I told him so. But I apprised you that I was a hard man, said he, difficult to persuade. And I am a hard woman, impossible to put off. And then, he pursued, I am cold, no fervor infects me, whereas I am hot, and fire dissolves ice. The blaze there has thawed all the snow from your cloak. By the same token, it has streamed onto my floor and made it like a trampled street. As you hope ever to be forgiven, Mr. Rivers, the high crime and misdemeanor of spoiling a sanded kitchen, tell me what I wish to know. Well then, he said, I yield, if not to your earnestness, to your perseverance, as stone is worn by continual dropping. Besides, you must know some day, as well now as later. Your name is Jane Eyre? Of course, that was all settled before. You are not, perhaps, aware that I am your namesake? That I was christened St. John Eyre Rivers? No, indeed. I remember now seeing the letter E comprised in your initials written in books you have at different times lent me, but I never asked for what name it stood. But what then?
Rivali's gale is now ready.
I stopped. I could not trust myself to entertain, much less to express, the thought that rushed upon me, that embodied itself, that in a second stood out a strong, solid probability. Circumstances knit themselves, fitted themselves, shot into order. The chain that had been lying hitherto a formless lump of links was drawn out straight. Every ring was perfect, the connection complete. I knew by instinct how the matter stood before St. John had said another word, but I cannot expect the reader to have the same intuitive perception, so I must repeat his explanation. My mother's name was Eyre. She had 2 brothers. One, a clergyman who married Miss Jane Reed of Gateshead. The other, John Eyre, Esquire, merchant, late of Funchal, Madeira. Mr. Briggs, being Mr. Eyre's solicitor, wrote to us last August to inform us of our uncle's death, and to say that he had left his property to his brother, the clergyman's orphan daughter, overlooking us, in consequence of a quarrel never forgotten between him and my father. He wrote again, a few weeks since, to intimate that the heiress was lost, and asking if we knew anything of her. A name casually written on a slip of paper has enabled me to find her out. You know the rest. Again, he was going, but I set my back against the door. Do let me speak, I said. Let me have one moment to draw breath and reflect. I paused. He stood before me, hat in hand, looking composed enough. I resumed. Your mother was my father's sister. Yes. My aunt, consequently. He bowed. My Uncle John was your Uncle John. You, Diana, and Mary are his sister's children, as I am his brother's child. Undeniably. You three, then, are my cousins. Half our blood on each side flows from the same source. We are cousins, yes. I surveyed him. It seemed I had found a brother, one I could be proud of, one I could love, and two sisters whose qualities were such that when I knew them but as mere strangers, they had inspired me with genuine affection and admiration. The two girls on whom, kneeling down on the wet ground and looking through the low latticed window of Morehouse kitchen, I had gazed with so bitter a mixture of interest and despair, were my near kinswomen. And the young and stately gentleman who had found me almost dying at his threshold was my blood relation. Glorious discovery to a lonely wretch. This was wealth indeed, wealth to the heart, a mine of pure, genial affections. This was a blessing, bright, vivid, and exhilarating, not like the ponderous gift of gold, rich and welcome enough in its way, but sobering from its weight. I now clapped my hands in sudden joy. My pulse bounded, my veins thrilled. Oh, I am glad! I am glad! I exclaimed. St. John smiled.
My moment has finally come.
Did I not say you neglected essential points to pursue trifles? She asked. You were serious when I told you you had got a fortune, and now, for a matter of no moment, you are excited. What can you mean? It may be of no moment to you. You have sisters and don't care for a cousin. But I had nobody, and now 3 relations, or 2 if you don't choose to be counted, are born into my world, full grown. I say again, I am glad. I walked fast through the room. I stopped, half suffocated with the thoughts that rose faster than I could receive, comprehend, settle them. Thoughts of what might, could, would, and should be, and that ere long. I looked at the blank wall. It seemed a sky, thick with ascending stars. Every one lighted me to a purpose or delight. Those who had saved me, whom till this hour I had loved barely, I could now benefit. They were under a yoke, I could free them. They were scattered, I could reunite them. The independence, the affluence which was mine, might be theirs too. Were we not 4? 20,000 pounds shared equally would be 5,000 each. Enough in despair. Justice was done, mutual happiness secured. Now the wealth did not weigh on me. Now it was not a mere bequest of coin. It was a legacy of life, hope, enjoyment. How I looked while these ideas were taking my spirit by storm, I cannot tell. But I perceived soon that Mr. Rivers had placed a chair behind me and was gently attempting to make me sit down on it. He also advised me to be composed. I scorned the insinuation of helplessness and distraction, shook off his hand, and began to walk. Write to Diana and Mary tomorrow, I said, and tell them to come home directly. Diana said they would both consider themselves rich with 1,000 pounds, so with 5,000 they will do very well. Tell me where I can get you a glass of water, said St. John. You must really make an effort to tranquilize your feelings. Nonsense. And what sort of an effect will the bequest have on you? Will it keep you in England, induce you to marry Miss Oliver, and settle down like an ordinary mortal? You wander. Your head becomes confused. I have been too abrupt in communicating the news. It has excited you beyond your strength. Mr. Rivers, you quite put me out of patience. I am rational enough. It is you who misunderstand, or rather, who affect to misunderstand. Perhaps if you explained yourself a little more fully, I should comprehend better. Explain? What is there to explain? You cannot fail to see that 20,000 pounds, the sum in question, divided equally between the nephew and 3 nieces of our uncle, will give 5,000 to each. What I want is that you should write to your sisters and tell them of the fortune that has accrued to them. To you, I mean. I have intimated my view of the case. I am incapable of taking any other. I am not brutally selfish, blindly unjust, or fiendishly ungrateful. Besides, I am resolved I will have a home and connections. I like Morehouse, and I will live in Morehouse. I like Diana and Mary, and I will attach myself for life to Diana and Mary. It would please and benefit me to have 5,000 pounds. It would torment and oppress me to have 20,000, which, moreover, could never be mine in justice, though it might in law. I abandon to you, then, what is absolutely superfluous to me. Let there be no opposition and no discussion about it. Let us agree among each other and decide the point at once. This is acting on first impulses. You must take days to consider such a matter, ere your word can be regarded as valid. Oh, if all you doubt is my sincerity, I am easy. You see the justice of the case. I do see a certain justice, but it is contrary to all custom. Besides, the entire fortune is your right. My uncle gained it by his own efforts. He was free to leave it to whom he would. He left it to you. After all, justice permits you to keep it. You may, with a clear conscience, consider it absolutely your own. With me, said I, it is fully as much a matter of feeling as of conscience. I must indulge my feelings. I so seldom have had an opportunity of doing so. Were you to argue, object, and annoy me for a year, I could not forego the delicious pleasure of which I have caught a glimpse, that of repaying in part a mighty obligation and winning to myself lifelong friends. You think so now, because you do not know what it is to possess, or consequently to enjoy wealth. You cannot form a notion of the importance 20,000 pounds would give you, of the place it would enable you to take in society, of the prospects it would open to you. You cannot, and you, I interrupted, cannot at all imagine the craving I cannot imagine the craving I have for fraternal and sisterly love. I never had a home. I never had brothers and sisters. I must and will have them now. You are not reluctant to admit me and own me, are you? Jane, I will be your brother. My sisters will be your sisters, without stipulating for this sacrifice of your just rights. Brother? Yes, at the distance of 1,000 leagues. Sisters? Yes, slaving among strangers. I, wealthy, gorged with gold I never earned and do not merit. You, penniless, famous equality and fraternization, close union, intimate attachment. But Jane, your aspirations after family ties and domestic happiness may be realized otherwise than by the means you contemplate. You may marry. Nonsense again. Marry? I don't want to marry and never shall marry. That is saying too much. Such hazardous affirmations are a proof of the excitement under which you labor. It is not saying too much. I know what I feel and how averse are my inclinations to the bare thought of marriage. No one would take me for love, and I will not be regarded as like a mere money speculation. And I do not want a stranger, unsympathizing, alien, different from me. I want my kindred, those with whom I have full fellow feeling. Say again you will be my brother. When you uttered the words, I was satisfied, happy. Repeat them if you can. Repeat them sincerely. I think I can. I know I have always loved my sisters, and I know on what my affection for them is grounded, respect for their worth and admiration of their talents. You, too, have principle in mind. Your tastes and habits resemble Diana's and Mary's. Your presence is always agreeable to me. In your conversation, I have already, for some time, found a salutary solace. I feel I can easily and naturally make room in my heart for you as my third and youngest sister. Thank you. That contents me for tonight. Now you had better go, for if you stay longer, you will perhaps irritate me afresh by some mistrustful scruple. And the school, Miss Eyre? It must now be shut up, I suppose. No, I will retain my post of mistress till you get a substitute. He smiled approbation. We shook hands, and he took leave. I need not narrate in detail the further struggles I had and arguments I used to get matters regarding the legacy settled as I wished. My task was a very hard one, but as I was absolutely resolved, as my cousin saw at length that my mind was really and immutably fixed on making a just division of the property, as they must in their own hearts have felt the equity of the intention, and must besides have felt innately conscious that in my place they would have done precisely what I wished to do, they yielded at length, so far as to consent to put the matter to arbitration. The judges chosen were Mr. Oliver and an able lawyer. Both coincided in my opinion. I carried my point. The instruments of transfer were drawn out. St. John, Diana, Mary, and I each became possessed of a competency. And that concludes chapter 33 of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I hope you have a great weekend. Go vote on what you'd like us to read next in our continuing tea series, resuming in June. And I will see you next week for our conclusion to Jane Eyre. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye-bye. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Christina Wainwright, the manager of the Pacific Beach Library, and this is a super exciting day. We're starting our final week together of reading Jane Eyre. And we are going to be reading chapter 34 today. And before we do that, though, I thought we'd get to an exciting decision. Again, lots of excitement today. I'm not a very calm person, apparently. Although I am going to be drinking a very calming tea. Today is a chamomile tea, just using tea bags, so that's why it's in the solid teapot instead of the one that has the translucent so we can see the color. So yeah, it's just a chamomile tea. So I thought there's so much excitement between the story ending, and also us choosing our next book that needed something soothing and relaxing.
Now my moment has
The
finally
chamomile tea is
come.
always so nice.
Brace yourself.
I had a really fun thing recently, actually, I guess it was a few months ago now, because it was before the quarantine started. I went to a tea party with my tea group, and one of the ladies made a chamomile ice cream. It was incredible. She steeped the chamomile in the milk, or in the cream before she cooked, or, made the base for the ice cream. It was amazing. This really strong chamomile flavor. It was so good. But okay. What I thought we'd do first is choose our book. We had 3 different books that had 4 or more votes. They were, excuse my terrible handwriting, Wuthering Heights, putting it into our little jar, House of the Seven Gables, and finally with 5 votes, Pride and Prejudice. I have read 2 of these 3, and I'm excited to read any of them, so I thought we would just give this a little bit of a mix. We're going to let chance help us choose what our next read will be. I think that's mixed enough. Let's go in and see what we get. Pride and Prejudice is our next book. So we're going to change over, probably next week starting, it'll change over from Tea with Jane Eyre to Tea with Jane Austen. And so, but yeah, I hope you'll join us starting next week for our reading together of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Yay! And thank you for everybody who voted and nominated the books you were interested in reading. I really appreciate it, because there are so many great books out there, it would be impossible for you to choose. Okay, not impossible. Clearly I did it here. But I would much rather have your help. It's just more fun. All right, so today we're going to read chapter 34 of Jane Eyre. We're getting so close to the end. Where we left off last week was Jane had some wonderful news. She was teaching at the school in Morton, and what she discovered was that St. John Rivers and Diana and Mary Rivers were actually all her cousins. She learned that she was her... Get this straight. Her father's sister had been Mrs. Rivers. There we go. And her father's brother had been John Eyre, the one who was in Madeira, who got his fortune and, kind of blocked her getting married to Mr. Rochester. But, it also could be Mr. Rochester's fault for having a wife in the attic whom he never disclosed. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. So where we left off was Jane discovered she had this fortune, and she basically told St. John that she did not think it equitable that she should take 20,000 pounds and that the three of them should have nothing. And that it would actually please her very much if she could split the fortune with the three of them, and that all four of them as a family would each have 5,000 pounds. And so instead of being a burden on her, it would be a gift that they could all enjoy. And so that chapter ended with her giving away the money, and she's wrapping up her time now in Morton. So let's go ahead and go back into chapter 34 of Jane Eyre. And again, for anyone who missed the earlier announcement, our next book will be Pride and Prejudice by Sebastian. I don't know why I had to go in the singing voice for that, but I did. It's super exciting. Okay, so let's go into chapter 34 of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. It was near Christmas by the time all was settled. The season of general holiday approached. I now closed Morton School, taking care that the parting should not be barren on my side. Good fortune opens the hand as well as the heart wonderfully, and to give somewhat when we have largely received is but to afford a vent to the unusual ebullition of sensations. I had long felt with pleasure that many of my rustic scholars liked me, and when we parted, that consciousness was confirmed. They manifested their affection plainly and strongly. Deep was my gratification to find I had really a place in their unsophisticated hearts. I promised them that never a week should pass in future that I did not visit them and give them an hour's teaching in their school. Mr. Rivers came up as, having seen the classes, now numbering 60 girls, file out before me and lock the door, I stood with the key in my hand, exchanging a few words of special farewell with some half-dozen of my best scholars, as decent, respectable, modest, and well-informed young women as could be found in the ranks of the British peasantry. And that is saying a good deal, for after all, the British peasantry are the best taught, best mannered, most self-respecting of any in Europe. Since those days, I have seen paisanes and baronin are French and German women of the peasant class respectively. And the best of them seem to me ignorant, coarse, and besotted compared with my Morton girls. Do you consider you've got your reward for a season of exertion? Asked Mr. Rivers when they were gone. Does not the consciousness of having done some real good in your day and generation give pleasure? Doubtless. And you have only toiled a few months. Would not a life devoted to the task of regenerating your race be well spent? Yes, I said, but I could not go on forever so. I want to enjoy my own faculties, as well as to cultivate those of other people. I must enjoy them now. Don't recall either my mind or body to the school. I am out of it, and disposed for full holiday. He looked grave. What now? What sudden eagerness is this you evince? What are you going to do? To be active as I can. And first, I must beg you to set Hannah at liberty and get somebody else to wait on you. Do you want her? Yes, to go with me to Moore House. Diana and Mary will be at home in a week, and I want to have everything in order against their arrival.
This is stressing.
I understand. I thought you were for flying off on some excursion. It is better so. Hannah shall go with you. Tell her to be ready by tomorrow, then. And here is the schoolroom key. I will give you the key of my cottage in the morning. He took it. You give it up very gleefully, said he. I don't quite understand your lightheartedness, because I cannot tell what employment you propose to yourself as a substitute for the one you are relinquishing. What aim, what purpose, what ambition in life have you now? My first aim will be to clean down. Do you comprehend the full force of the expression? To clean down Moore House, from chamber to cellar. My next, to rub it up with beeswax, oil, and an indefinite number of cloths till it glitters again. My third, to arrange every chair, table, bed, carpet with mathematical precision. Afterward, I shall go near to ruin you in coals and peat, and keep up good fires in every room. And lastly, the 2 days preceding that on which your sisters are expected will be devoted by Hannah and me to such a beating of eggs, sorting of currants, grating of spices, compounding of Christmas cakes, chopping up of materials for mince pies, and solemnizing of other culinary rites, as words can convey but an inadequate notion of to the uninitiated, like you. My purpose, in short, is to have all things in an absolutely perfect state of readiness for Diana and Mary before next Thursday. And my ambition is to give them a beau ideal of a welcome when they come. St. John smiled slightly. Still, he was dissatisfied. "It is all very well for the present," said he. "But seriously, I trust that when the first flush of vivacity is over, we will look a little higher in domestic endearments and household joys." "The best thing the world has," I interrupted. "No, Jane, no. This world is not the scene of fruition. Do not attempt to make it so, nor of rest. Do not turn slothful." "I mean, on the contrary, to be busy." "Jane, I excuse you for the present. 2 months' grace I allow you for the full enjoyment of your new position, and for pleasing yourself with this late-found charm of relationship. But then, I hope you will begin to look beyond Morehouse and Morton and sisterly society and the selfish calm and sensual comfort of civilized affluence. I hope your energies will then once more trouble you with their strength." I looked at him with surprise. "St. John," I said, "I think you are almost wicked to talk so. I am disposed to be as content as a queen, and you try to stir me up to restlessness. To what end?" "To the end of turning to profit the talents which God has committed to your keeping, and of which you will surely one day demand a strict account. Jane, I shall watch you closely and anxiously. I warn you of that. And try to restrain the disproportionate fervor with which you throw yourself into commonplace home pleasures. Don't cling so tenaciously to ties of the flesh. Save your constancy and ardor for an adequate cause. Forbear to waste them on trite, transient objects. Do you hear, Jane?" "Yes, just as if you were speaking Greek. I feel I have adequate cause to be happy, and I will be happy. Goodbye." Happy at Morehouse I was, and hard I worked, and so did Hannah. She was charmed to see how jovial I could be amid the bustle of a house turned topsy-turvy, how I could brush and dust and clean and cook, and really, after a day or two of confusion, worse confounded, it was delightful, by degrees, to invoke order from the chaos ourselves had made. I had previously taken a journey to S to purchase some new furniture, my cousins having given me carte blanche to effect what alterations I pleased, and a sum having been set aside for that purpose. The ordinary sitting room and bedrooms I left much as they were, for I knew Diana and Mary would derive more pleasure from seeing again the old homely tables and chairs and beds than from the spectacle of these smartest innovations. Still, some novelty was necessary to give to their return the piquancy from which I wished it to be invested. Dark, handsome new carpets and curtains, an arrangement of some carefully selected antique ornaments and porcelain flags, new coverings and mirrors and dressing cases for the toilet tables answered the end. They looked fresh without being glaring. A spare parlor and bedroom I refurnished entirely with old mahogany and crimson upholstery. I laid canvas on the passage and carpets on the stairs. When all was finished, I thought Morehouse as complete a model of bright, modest snugness within, as it was, at this season, a specimen of wintry waste and desert dreariness without. The eventful Thursday at length came. They were expected about dark, and ere dusk, fires were lighted upstairs and below. The kitchen was in perfect trim. Hannah and I were dressed, and all was in readiness. St. John arrived first. I had entreated him to keep quite clear of the house till everything was arranged, and indeed, the bare idea of the commotion at once sordid and trivial going on within its walls sufficed to scare him to estrangement. He found me in the kitchen, watching the progress of certain cakes for tea, then baking. Approaching the hearth, he asked if I was at last satisfied with the housemaid's work. I answered by inviting him to accompany me on a general inspection of the results of my labors. With some difficulty, I got him to make the tour of the house. He just looked in at the doors I opened, and when he had wandered upstairs and downstairs, he said I must have gone through a great deal of fatigue and trouble to have effected such considerable changes in so short a time. But not a syllable did he utter, indicating pleasure in the improved aspect of his abode. This silence damped me. I thought perhaps the alterations had disturbed some old associations he valued. I inquired whether this was the case, no doubt in a somewhat crestfallen tone. Not at all. He had, on the contrary, remarked that I had scrupulously respected every association. He feared, indeed, I must have bestowed more thought on the matter than it was worth. How many minutes, for instance, had I devoted to studying the arrangement of this very room.
Gannon was
And by the by,
born of a
could I tell him
dark
where such a book was? I showed him the volume on the shelf. He took it down, and withdrawing to his accustomed window recess, he began to read it. Now, I did not like this reader. St. John was a good man, but I began to feel he had spoken truth of himself when he said he was hard and cold. The humanities and amenities of life had no attraction for him. Its peaceful enjoyments, no charm. Literally, he lived only to aspire, after what was good and great, certainly, but still, he would never rest, nor approve of others resting round him. As I looked at his lofty forehead, still and pale as a white stone, at his fine lineaments fixed in study, I comprehended all at once that he would hardly make a good husband, that it would be a trying thing to be his wife. I understood, as by inspiration, the nature of his love for his I agreed with him that it was but a love of his senses. I comprehended how he should despise himself for the feverish influence it exercised over him, how he should wish to stifle and destroy it, how he should mistrust its ever conducing permanently to his happiness or hers. I saw he was of the material from which nature hews her heroes, Christians and pagan, her lawgivers, her statesmen, her conquerors, a steadfast bulwark for great interests to rest upon, but at the fireside, too often a cold, cumbrous column, gloomy and out of place. This parlor is not his sphere, I reflected. The Himalayan ridge or Kaffir bush, even the plague-cursed Guinea coast swamp would suit him better. Well may he eschew the calm of domestic life, it is not his element. There, his faculties stagnate, they cannot develop or appear to advantage. It is in scenes of strife and danger, where courage is proved and energy is exercised and fortitude taxed, that he will speak and be the leader and superior. A married child can have the advantage of him on this harp. He has right to choose a missionary's career. I see it now. They're coming, cried Hannah, throwing open the parlor door. At the same moment, old Carlo barked joyfully. Out I ran. It was now dark, but a rumbling of wheels was audible. Hannah soon had a lantern lighted. The vehicle had stopped at the wicket. The driver opened the door. First one well-known face or form, then another stepped out. In a minute, I had my face under their bonnets, in contact first with Mary's cheek, then with Diana's flowing curls. They laughed, kissed me, then Hannah patted Carlo, who was half wild with delight, asked eagerly if all was well, and being assured in the affirmative, hastened into the house. They were stiff with their long and jolting drive from Whithouse, and chilled with the frosty night air, but their pleasant countenances expanded to the cheering firelight. While the driver and Hannah brought in the boxes, they demanded St. John. At this moment he advanced from the parlor. They both threw their arms round his neck at once. He gave each one a quiet kiss, said in a low tone a few words of welcome, stood a while to be talked to, and then, intimating that he supposed they would soon rejoin him in the parlor, withdrew there as to a place of refuge. I had lighted their candles to go upstairs, but Diana had first to give hospitable orders regarding the driver, or respecting the driver. This done, both followed me. They were delighted with the renovation and decoration of their rooms, with the new drapery and fresh carpets and rich tinted china vases. They expressed their gratification ungrudgingly. I had the pleasure of feeling that my arrangements met their wishes exactly, and that what I had done added a vivid charm to their joyous return home. Sweet was that evening. My cousins, full of exhilaration, were so eloquent in narrative and comment that their fluency covered St. John's taciturnity. He was sincerely glad to see his sister, but in their glow of fervor and flow of joy, he could not sympathize. The event of the day, that is, the return of Hannah and Mary, pleased him. But the accompaniments of that event, the glad tumult, the garrulous glee of reception, irked him. I saw he wished the calmer morrow was come. In the very meridian of the night's enjoyment, about an hour after tea, a rap was heard at the door. Hannah entered with the intimation that the poor lad was come at that unlikely time to fetch Mr. Rivers to see his mother, who was drawing away. Where does she live, Hannah? Clear of the Whitcliff's brow, almost 4 miles off, and Moore and Moss all the way. Tell him I will go. I'm sure, sir, you had better not. It's the worst road to travel after dark that can be. There's no traffic all over the bog. And then it is such a bitter night. The keenest wind you ever felt. You'd better send word, sir, that you'll be there in the morning. But he was already in the passage, putting on his cloak, and without one objection, one murmur, he departed. It was then 9 o'clock. He did not return till midnight. Starved and tired enough he was, but he looked happier than when he set out. He had performed an act of duty, made an exertion, felt his own strength to do and deny, and was on better terms with himself. I am afraid the whole of the ensuing week tried his patience. It was Christmas week. We took to no settled employment, but spent it in a sort of merry domestic dissipation. The air of the moors, the freedom of home, the dawn of prosperity, acted on Diana's and Mary's spirits like some life-giving elixir. They were gay from morning till noon, and from noon till night. They could always talk, and their discourse, witty, pithy, original, had such charms for me that I preferred listening to and sharing in it to doing anything else. St. John did not rebuke our vivacity, but he escaped from it. He was seldom in the house. His parish was large, the population scattered, and he found daily business in visiting the sick and poor in its different districts. One morning at breakfast, Diana, after looking a little pensive for some minutes, asked him if his plans were yet unchanged. Unchanged and unchangeable, was the reply. And he proceeded to inform us that his departure from England was now definitively fixed for the ensuing year. And Rosamond Oliver, suggested Mary, the words seeming to escape her lips involuntarily, for no sooner had she uttered them than she made a gesture as if wishing to recall them. St. John had a book in his hand. It was his unsocial custom to read at meals. He closed it and looked up. Rosamond Oliver, said he, is about to be married to Mr. Granby, one of the best connected and most estimable residents in S. Grandson and heir to Sir Frederick Granby, I had the intelligence from her father yesterday. His sisters looked at each other and at me. We all three looked at him. He was serene as glass. The match must have been got up hastily, said Diana. They cannot have known each other long. But 2 months. They met in October at the county ball in S. But where there are no obstacles to a union, as in the present case, where the connection is in every point desirable, delays are unnecessary. They will be married as soon as S place, which Sir Frederick gives up to them, can be refitted for their reception. The first time I found St. John alone after this communication, I felt tempted to inquire if the event distressed him. But he seemed so little to need sympathy that, so far from venturing to offer him more, I experienced some shame at the recollection of what I had already hazarded. Besides, I was out of practice in talking to him. His reserve was again frozen over, and my frankness was congealed beneath it. He had not kept his promise of treating me like his sisters. He continually made little, chilling differences between us, which did not at all tend to the development of cordiality. In short, now that I was acknowledged as kinswoman and lived under the same roof as him, I felt the distance between us to be far greater than when he had known me only as the village school mistress. When I remembered how far I had once been admitted to his confidence, I could hardly comprehend his present frigidity. Such being the case, I felt not a little surprised when he raised his head suddenly from the desk over which he was stooping and said, "You see, Jane, the battle is fought and the victory won." Startled at being thus addressed, I did not immediately reply. After a moment's hesitation, I answered, "But are you sure you are not in the position of those conquerors whose triumphs have cost them too dear? Would not such another ruin you?" "I think not, and if I were, it does not much signify. I shall never be called upon to contend for such another. The event of the conflict is decisive. My way is now clear. I thank God for it." So saying, he returned to his papers and his silence. As our mutual happiness, i.e., Diana's, Mary's, and mine, settled into a quieter character and we resumed our usual habits and regular studies, St. John stayed more at home. He sat with us in the same room, sometimes for hours together. While Mary drew, Diana pursued a course of encyclopedic reading she had, to my awe and amazement, taken, and I fagged away at German. He pondered a mystic lore of his own, that of some Eastern tongue, the acquisition of which he thought necessary to his plans. Thus engaged, he appeared, sitting in his own recess, blue eye of his had a habit of leaving this outlandish-looking grammar, wandering over, and sometimes fixing upon us, his fellow students, with a curious intensity of observation. If caught, it would be instantly withdrawn. If ever and anon, it returned searchingly to our table. I wondered what it meant. I wondered, too, at the punctual satisfaction he never failed to exhibit on an occasion that seemed to me a small moment, namely, my weekly visit to Morton School. And still more was I puzzled when, if the day was unfavorable, if there was snow or rain or high wind, and his sisters urged me not to go, he'd invariably make light of their solicitude and encourage me to accomplish a task without regard to the elements. Jane is not such a weakling as you would make her, he would say. She can bear a mountain blast or a shower or a few flakes of snow as well as any of us. Her constitution is both sound and elastic, better calculated to endure variations of climate than many more robust. And when I returned, sometimes a good deal tired and not a little weather-beaten, I never dared complain, because I saw that to murmur would be to vex him. On all occasions, fortitude pleased him. The reverse was his special annoyance. One afternoon, however, I got leave to stay at home because I really had a cold. His sisters were gone to Morton in my stead. I sat reading Schiller, he deciphering his craft Oriental scrolls. As I exchanged the translation for an exercise, I happened to look his way. There I found myself under the influence of the ever-watchful blue eye. How long had it been searching me through and over I cannot tell. So keen was it, and yet so cold, I felt for the moment superstitious, as if I were sitting in the room of something uncanny. Jane, what are you doing?
Do what you must do.
Learning German. I want you to give up German and learn Hindustani.
Now, Lynn.
You are not in earnest. In such earnest that I must have it so, and I will tell you why. He then went on to explain that Hindustani was the language he was himself studying. That as he advanced, he was apt to forget the commencement, that it would assist him greatly to have a pupil with whom he might again and again go over the elements, and so fix them thoroughly in his mind, that his choice had hovered for some time between me and his sisters, but that he had fixed it on me, because he saw I could sit at a task the longest of the three. Would I do him this favor? I should not perhaps have to make the sacrifice long, as it wanted now barely 3 months to his departure. St. John was not a man to be lightly refused. I felt that every impression made on him, whether for pain or pleasure, was deep engraved and permanent. I consented. When Diana and Mary returned, the former found her scholar transferred from her to her brother. She laughed, and both she and Mary agreed that St. John should never have persuaded them to such a step. He answered quietly, I knew it. I found him a very patient, very forbearing, and yet an exacting master. He expected me to do a great deal, and when I fulfilled his expectations, in his own way, fully testified his approbation. By degrees he acquired a certain influence over me that took away my liberty of mind. His praise and notice were more restraining than his indifference. I could no longer talk or laugh freely when he was by, because a tiresomely important instinct reminded me that vivacity, at least in me, was distasteful to him. I was so fully aware that only serious moods and occupations were acceptable, that in his presence every effort to sustain or follow any other became vain. I fell under a freezing spell. When he said go, I went. Come, I came. Do this, I did it. But I did not love my servitude. I wished many a time he had continued to neglect me. One evening, when at bedtime his sisters and I stood around him, bidding him good night, he kissed each of them, as was his custom, and as was equally his custom, he gave me his hand. Diana, who chanced to be in a frolicsome humor, she was not painfully controlled by his will, for hers in another way was as strong, exclaimed, St. John, you used to call Jane your third sister, but you don't treat her as such. You should kiss her too. She pushed me toward him. I thought Diana was very provoking, and very uncomfortable, and felt uncomfortably confused. And while I was thus thinking and feeling, St. John bent his head. His Greek face was brought to a level with mine. His eyes questioned my eyes piercingly. He kissed me. There are no such things as marble kisses or ice kisses, or I should say my ecclesiastical cousin's salute belonged to one of these classes. But there may be experiment kisses, and his was an experiment kiss. When given, he viewed me to learn the result. It was not striking. I am sure I did not blush. Perhaps I might have turned a little pale, for I felt as if this kiss were a seal affixed to my fetters. He never omitted the ceremony afterward, and the gravity and quiescence with which I underwent it seemed to invest it for him with a certain charm. As for me, I daily wished more to please him, but to do so I felt daily more and more that I must disown half my nature, stifle half my faculties, wrest my tastes from their original bent, force myself to the adoption of pursuits for which I had no natural vocation. He wanted to train me to an elevation I could never reach. It racked me hourly to aspire to the standard he uplifted. The thing was as impossible as to mold my irregular features to his correct and classic pattern, to give to my changeable green eyes the sea-blue tint and solemn luster of his own. Not his ascendancy alone, however, held me in thrall at present. Of late, it had been easy enough for me to look sad. A cankering evil sat at my heart and drained my happiness at its source, the evil of suspense. Perhaps you think I had forgotten Mr. Rochester, reader, amid these changes of place and fortune? Not for a minute, or not for a moment. His idea was still with me, because it was not a vapor sunshine could disperse, nor a sand-traced effigy storms could wash away. It was a name graven on a tablet, fated to last as long as the marble it inscribed. The craving to know what had become of him followed me everywhere. When I was at Morton, I re-entered my cottage every evening to think of that, and now at Moor House, I sought my bedroom each night to brood over it. In the course of my necessary correspondence with Mr. Briggs about the will, I had inquired if he knew anything of Mr. Rochester's present residence and state of health. But as St. John had conjectured, he was quite ignorant of all concerning him. I then wrote to Mrs. Fairfax, entreating information on the subject. I had calculated with certainty on this step answering my end. I felt sure it would elicit an early answer. I was astonished when a fortnight passed without reply. But when 2 months wore away, and day after day the post arrived and brought nothing for me, I felt a prey to the keenest anxiety. I wrote again. There was a chance of my first letter having missed. Renewed hope followed renewed effort. It shone like the former for some weeks. Then, like it faded, flickered. Not a line, not a word reached me. When half a year wasted in vain expectancy, my hope died out, and then I felt dark indeed. A fine spring shone round me, which I could not enjoy. Summer approached. Diana tried to cheer me. She said I looked ill and wished to accompany me to the seaside. This St. John opposed. He said I did not want dissipation, I wanted employment. My present life was too purposeless. I required an aim, and I suppose by way of supplying deficiencies, he prolonged still further my lessons in Hindustani and grew more urgent in requiring their accomplishment. And I, like a fool, never thought of resisting him. I could not resist him. One day I had come to my studies in lower spirits than usual. The ebb was occasioned by a poignantly felt disappointment. Hannah had told me in the morning there was a letter for me, and when I went down to take it, almost certain that the long-looked-for tidings were vouchsafed me at last, I found only an unimportant note from Mr. Briggs on business. The bitter check had wrung from me some tears, and now, as I sat poring over the crabbed characters and flourishing tropes of an Indian scribe, my eyes filled again. St. John called me to his side to read. In attempting to do this, my voice failed me. Words were lost in sobs. He and I were the only occupants of the parlor. Diana was practicing her music in the drawing room. Mary was gardening. It was a very fine May day, clear, sunny, and breezy. My companion expressed no surprise at this emotion, nor did he question me as to its cause. He only said, "We will wait a few minutes, Jane, till you are more composed." And while I smothered the paroxysm with all haste, he sat calm and patient, leaning on his desk and looking like a physician watching with the eye of science an expected and fully understood crisis in a patient's malady. Having stifled my sobs, wiped my eyes, and muttered something about not being very well that morning, I resumed my task and succeeded in completing it. St. John put away my books and his, locked his desk, and said, "Now, Jane, you shall take a walk, and with me." "I will call Diana and Mary." "No, I want only one companion this morning, and that must be you. Put on your things, go out by the kitchen door, take the road toward the head of Marsh Glen. I will join you in a moment." I know no medium. I never in my life have known any medium in my dealings with positive hard characters, antagonistic to my own, between absolute submission and determined revolt. I have always faithfully observed the one, up to the very moment of bursting, sometimes with volcanic vehemence, into the other. And as neither present circumstances warranted, nor my present mood inclined me to mutiny, I observed careful obedience to St. John's directions, and in 10 minutes I was treading the wild track of the glen, side by side with him. The breeze was from the west. It came over the hills, sweet with scents of heath and rush. The sky was of stainless blue. The stream descending the ravine, swelled with past spring rains, poured along plentiful and clear, catching golden gleams from the sun and sapphire tints from the firmament. As we advanced and left the track, we trod a soft turf, mossy, fine, and emerald green, minutely enameled with a tiny white flower and spangled with the starlight yellow blossoms. The hills, meantime, shut us quite in, for the glen, toward its head, wound up to their very core. "Let us rest here," said St. John, as we reached the first stragglers of a battalion of rocks, guarding a sort of pass, beyond which the beck rushed down, a waterfall, and where, still a little further, the mountain shook off turf and flower, had only heath for raiment and crag for gem, where it exaggerated the wild to the savage and exchanged the fresh for the frowning, where it guarded the forlorn hope of solitude and a last refuge for silence. I took a seat. St. John stood near me. He looked up the pass and down the hollow. His glance wandered away with the stream and returned to traverse the unclouded heaven which colored it. He removed his hat, let the breeze stir his hair and kiss his brow. He seemed in communion with the genius of the haunt, and his eye he bade farewell to something. "And I shall see it again," he said aloud, "in dreams when I sleep by the Ganges, and again in a more remote hour when another slumber overcomes me, on the shore of a darker stream." Strange words of a strange love, an austere patriot's passion for his fatherland. He sat down. For half an hour we never spoke, neither he to me nor I to him. That interval passed, he recommenced. "Jane, I go in 6 weeks. I have taken my berth in an East Indiaman, which sails on the 20th of June. God will protect you, for you have undertaken his work," I answered. "Yes, sir. There is my glory and joy. I am the servant of an infallible master. I am not going out under human guidance, subject to the defective laws and erring control of my feeble fellow worms. My king, my lawgiver, my captain is the all-perfect. It seems strange to me that all round me do not burn to enlist under the same banner, to join in the same enterprise. All have not your powers, and it would be folly for the feeble to wish to march with the strong. I do not speak to the feeble or think of them. I address only such as are worthy of the work and competent to accomplish it. Those are few in number and difficult to discover." "You say truly, but when found, it is right to stir them up, to urge and exhort them to the effort, to show them what their gifts are and why they are given, to speak heaven's message in their ear, to offer them, direct from God, a place in the ranks of his chosen. If they are really qualified for the task, will not their own hearts be the first to inform them of it?" I felt as if an awful chasm was framing round and gathering over me. I trembled to hear some fatal words spoken which would at once declare and rivet the spell. "And what does your heart say?" demanded St. John. "My heart is mute. My heart is mute," I answered, struck and thrilled. "Then I must speak for it," continued the deep, relentless voice. "Jane, come with me to India. Come as my helpmeet and fellow laborer." The glen and sky spun round. The hills heaved. It was as if I had heard a summons from heaven, as if a visionary messenger, like him of Macedonia, had announced, "Come over and help us." But I was no apostle. I could not behold the herald. I could not receive his call. "Oh, St. John," I then cried, "have some mercy." I appealed to one who, in the discharge of what he believed his duty, knew neither mercy nor remorse. He continued, "God and nature intended you for a missionary's wife. It is not personal, but mental endowments they have given you. You are formed for labor, not for love. A missionary's wife you must, shall be. You shall be mine. I claim you, not for my pleasure, but for my sovereign service. I am not fit for it. I have no vocation."
Well, there you have it. You take the Jane Eyre and the Legend of Zelda and you mix them together, and what you got them right next to each other. So there you have it. That was a fun one. Thanks for swinging by. I have been your host, Sebastian Saint Serapian, Scholastic Bishop for Smalls. You're killing me, Smalls. Vincent twice. You can always call me Bennett. Yeah, that was fun. Thanks so much for swinging by. Catch you guys on the flip side.
Believed himself worthy of the summons. I, for instance, am but dust and ashes. With St. Paul, I acknowledge myself the chiefest of sinners, but I do not suffer the sense of my personal vileness to daunt me. I know my leader, that he is just as well as mighty, and while he has chosen a feeble instrument to perform a great task, he will, from the boundless stores of his providence, supply the inadequacy of the means to the end. Think like me, Jane. Trust like me. It is the rock of ages I ask you to lean on. Do not doubt, but it will bear the weight of your human weakness. For you, hear it. I have watched you ever since we first met. I have made you my study for 10 months. I have proved you in that time by sundry tests. And what have I seen and elicited? In the village school, I found you could perform well,